The S&P 500 is a very common index to invest in, and typically exposure is done through a market cap weighted index. And the problem with that is that companies like Apple and Microsoft can come to dominate. And so the problem is that what happens if these larger companies that dominate the index then go through tough times, you could see some quite bad returns. So a potential solution to this is an equal cap weighted exchange traded fund. So for the S&P 500, each company is weighted at 0.2%. And the argument is that this equal weighting will give you lower volatility and more diversification, and potentially in times when the S&P 500 is concentrated in quite a few companies, then the equal cap weighted ETF might actually outperform its market cap weighted counterpart. So in this video we're going to look at the performance, and we're going to look at some advantages and disadvantages of an equally weighted S&P 500 ETF. And here's another graph just looking at the top 5 concentration of the S&P 500 over time. And what tends to happen is that when the concentration is quite low, then market cap weighted tends to outperform equal weighted. When the concentration is quite high, you get the opposite, and equal weight outperforms market cap weighted. And here we're at quite close to almost like an all-time high, so there is potential for equal weights moving forwards to have potential outperformance from the market cap weighted S&P 500 index. So over the last 5 years, a market cap weighted ETF has beaten an equally weighted ETF. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. You actually want to buy something that's kind of currently out of favour but might swing round to becoming in favour, and that's a good way of getting outperformance. And certainly if we go back 20 years instead of 5 years, we can see that actually the equal weighted ETF has outperformed its market cap weighted counterpart. When we compare the S&P 500 from June 2000 to today, there's only one company that's in the top 10 for both time periods, and that's Microsoft. And we can also see that the S&P 500 is now more concentrated than it was back in June 2000, and there's 2 companies with a weighting of greater than 5%. So that means that if these 2 companies don't do so well, they're going to have quite a large impact on the overall returns of the S&P 500 index. And this is an argument for using an equal weighted ETF, because then if Apple and Microsoft don't do so well, there's much less of an impact, and so potentially you get less volatility and, if you're lucky, greater returns. The equal weight ETF available is XDWE from the company Xtrackers. The size of the ETF is over $2 billion in total, and the ongoing charges fee is 0.2%, so maybe about 4 times that of a market cap weighted S&P 500 ETF. And here we can see a little chart of performance and a bit of information about the ETF. So this is probably the most interesting thing about an equal weighted S&P 500 ETF versus a market cap weighted one. So with the equal weighted, we've got industrials at number 1 in terms of sectors. So there's more industrial companies in the S&P 500 than there are information technology companies, and the weighting of information technology has dropped from 25% in the S&P 500 to about 14% in the equal weighted equivalent. So if you think that information technology as a sector is a bit overvalued, maybe you're not so keen on it, then one way to still get exposure to US headquartered companies and the S&P 500 could be through an equal weighted ETF. So we can apply equal weighting to other investments, and here I'm looking at the global equity income sector on the Pick a Fund website, and we've got one of our favourites, the Wisdom Tree Global Quality Dividend Growth ETF, and a fund with similar 5-year growth is the Guinness Global Equity Income. And the Guinness fund is an equally weighted fund, so it has about 35 components, each weighted at around about 3 to 4%. And the advantage of this is that no one company comes to dominate the active fund. So if it's got a company in it that you don't like, you don't need to worry because its size will effectively be capped. And then also when a company starts to underperform in the fund, then Guinness have to look at whether they want to keep it or not, because in order to maintain the equal weighting, they've kind of got to buy more of it. So that means there's a bit more discipline around the holdings in the fund, because when they get a company that starts to become a bit of a loser, they've either got to support it or they've got to bin it, and they can't just passively hold on to it and wait and see what happens. So here's a look at Guinness Global Equity Income in a bit more detail. Unfortunately, over 10 years it's only really kept up with the benchmark, but it's quite a popular fund, quite a large fund, and I think it's worthy of consideration, worthy of a bit more look. So if you like companies like Microsoft but you don't want 5-6% of it in your portfolio, then maybe this is a fund to just consider and give it the once over. So I hope you've enjoyed the video and you'll give an equally weighted ETF some consideration in the future. Give the video a thumbs up, let me know your comments, subscribe to the channel and check out this next video.